Welcome to Film Courage. This is episode 164. I'm Karen Warden.
And I'm David Brandon. You can find our archives on iTunes as well as filmcourage.com.
Our guest today is Anne Renton, director of The Perfect Family, starring Kathleen Turner, Emily Deschanel, Jason Ritter, Richard Chamberlain, and more. And A Perfect Family premiered at the 2011 Tribeca Film Festival.
That's right, and then a whole slew of other festivals as well. The Perfect Family is about suburban supermom Eileen Cleary, played by Academy Award nominee Kathleen Turner, who is the ultimate Catholic, and she's been nominated for the Catholic Woman of the Year at her local parish, and it looks like she's about to get the plaque to prove it.
Okay.
Only the final test remains in introducing her family to the church board for the seal of approval.
Right, and in terms of her family, she must finally face the truth about her nonconformist family, a truth that she's been glossing over for years. Her gay daughter, Shannon, played by Emily Deschanel, is about to marry her life partner, and then her unhappily married son, Frank Jr., played by Jason Ritter, is having an affair with a local manicurist. Sounds interesting. And Eileen's own marriage to a recovered alcoholic is pulling at the seams. So let's find out more about it. Please welcome Anne Renton. Hi, Anne.
Hi. Hi.
Welcome.
Welcome, Anne.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be on the show.
Oh, and
it's nice to have you.
And we're super excited to have you. And we want to talk a little bit about your life right now. The Perfect Family is now released everywhere. It's in its theatrical run right now. And people all over the world are watching this film, and they're commenting, and they're reaching out to you, and you're traveling everywhere. Tell us a little bit about your life right now. How do you feel?
Well, I'm excited. I feel like our team's done a really great job of getting the film out there. We're basically only in North America right now. We're playing at some international film festivals, but in theaters, it's a small release. We've played probably just over 20 cities. And we also did video on demand at the same time. So we were sort of factoring that into the whole overall plan for the film. But yeah, it's all moving, and I'm proud of how far the film's been able to get out, and we are, reaching internationally, at least with people on Facebook and things like that, commenting and asking us when the film's coming to their country. So that's fun. But yeah.
And I mean, how long has it been since at what point? Because the film released May 4th. And we had a chance to meet you in person in October at the Filmmaker Forum. Like, at what point did life really start to get crazy for you? I mean, was it right at the release of the film, or what? Like, how far in advance did all of a sudden it's just been like this storm overtaking you?
Well, I actually think it was before we started shooting, because I mean, you know what it's like going into production. It's so full on, and I was working another job at the same time then, and so sort of negotiating that, and there's sort of been more busier periods and slower periods throughout, but definitely once we decided that we were going to distribute this film and really push it out there, which was actually around October last year, maybe a little bit before, but October was when we really started putting the team together of who we wanted to work with. Just sort of, it was like, went from there.
Wow, interesting. Well, now you have a wonderful background in that you have a degree, is it in physiotherapy from Sydney University? That's right,
which is physical therapy here, but it's just slightly different name there. But yeah, so I did this science degree and learned all about the body, and the muscles and the musculoskeletal system, etc. But I went from physio to kind of feeling like there was so much more to the body than just the joints and the muscles and the structure, which in the straight degree you don't learn any more than that. So I went on and sort of studied massage, and then started studying energy and really learning how the emotions started having an effect on the body. And it was sort of through that process I started studying at a healing school, which is why I came to the States to go to this school here. And part of that school was really worked with creativity and how creativity really moves energy in the body and can, open parts of yourself that when that part of you is shut down, it just is kind of limiting how you are in the world. And so through my studies there, I realized that I'd always wanted to study acting and had done a little bit in school, but it was never something that I thought, you could go into as a profession at the time. So when I was in New York when I was studying at the school, and so I started studying acting in New York, and that's sort of what started my path along into the filmmaking world.
Okay. And how long did you do that for? And you also did voiceover work too, right? You have a beautiful voice.
Doing acting and studying acting and voiceover, doing some voiceover stuff at the same time. I probably studied it for like 5 years. I just studied it with like private schools in New York part-time. And but what I realized in doing that is, as an actor, what I really loved script analysis, and I really loved understanding character from, more the background point of view, and felt like as an actor, I was sort of only going out for these parts that I didn't frankly really care about. And I wanted to, be able to be a little bit more in control of the stories and the things that I was doing. Mm. And, I certainly as an actor, I never got to a level where I was a working actor that I could do that full time. But I don't know, I really felt like all the way I was being pushed more towards directing. And then, in New York, I kind of realized, if I want to be directing later, I probably need to start now. So that this was about 5 or 6 years ago. I think, maybe, something like that.
Mm-hmm. So from those experiences being in front of the camera and also doing voiceover work, what did that teach you once you got behind the camera and then you were directing, actors and people that were, very invested in what you thought of their performance?
Well, wow, that's a big question. I learned an incredible amount. I think, as a director, that background, the thing that's most helpful is it made me feel comfortable with actors and made me feel like I have a sense of how to work with them, and also how to recognize the different people need different things from the director. Different actors need different things, and they work in different ways. So I think that was an important thing to be able to take into directing. Like, there's not just one way to do it. And that's really important to be aware of with the actors.
Well, I find that fascinating. Can you just give us sort of a prototype of what one actor needs versus what the other one? Does one need more sort of an emotional or sort of validation, whereas others might need more of a just concrete instruction?
Definitely. I mean, I feel like some actors might prefer to, talk about the material and really understand what you're going for in the material, and then be able to go away and work on how they want to approach that performance-wise on their own. And some are really open to being in rehearsal and working it out in rehearsal in the moment, trying different things, really working what maybe even the beats could be in a certain scene, and want to work more with you. So it depends, and both have their merits, because ultimately it's when you get on set, you don't we did a little bit of rehearsal, just so it's clear, for this film. It was a very short rehearsal period, but we did like 4 days. So, because, when you get on set, there's not really time. You have to kind of really know what you're going for. On an indie film, there's not time to be rehearsing on the set. Wow. So I think, my background helped me through the rehearsal process and then into how to be on set as well.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting hearing you describe some of this stuff, Anne, because I'm just visualizing you like really liking to break things down, the process. I mean, just even hearing you talk a little bit about physical therapy, about studying the body. So it's kind of like you like to see the components, like break it down to like its purest form, and then sort of like build it back up on your own. Does that go into your artistic process as well?
I think so. Yeah, I like that. I think I'm certainly always exploring like how else something could be done, or what is there a better way to do this, or that kind of thing. And I definitely think this film for me was very much a collaborative process, because I'm very interested in what other people's experience is, and frankly, on a first film, you want people who are more experienced than you around you, and having that kind of process of breaking things down and figuring out how it works in my mind, and then bringing in everyone else's kind of thoughts and then putting it back together in a way that sort of encompasses the whole.
Absolutely. And did your background in with the healing arts, did that come into play? With you as a director?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in so many ways. As part of that training, I studied a lot of psychology, so get to understand like how different people, how they're set up. I use the word characterology because that's what we call it, but it's really looking at someone and how they operate in the world and what makes them feel safe, what makes them feel threatened, those kind of things. So as a director, to be able to work with like crew and also actors and have this a little bit more of a sense, I think, of how potentially, because it's not always accurate, but how people are in the world and what feels supportive to them, I think that was a huge help.
That's interesting. Now, the Cannes Film Festival opened this week, and so for 2012, as with the 2010 edition, I believe there were no female-directed films in the competition. And in doing a little research, in the 64 years of the festival, I believe one woman, was it Jane Campion? I hope I'm saying her name right, has been awarded the Palme d'Or. What's your take on this?
Oh.
No pressure.
There's that petition going around, which hopefully everyone listening has signed, because it's a little shocking, really, to hear that news. I mean, if this petition wasn't going around that Melissa's doing from Women in Hollywood, I may not have been so, seen it, actually, because the petition came right into my inbox, and then I've been seeing it everywhere. But, I think it's sad. I mean, I think that there is a lot of talented women directors, and to not even have one in a lineup, it just seems to be, it's like I can't even quite process it. Mm-hmm. But what do you think?
I have my own feelings on it in that I think it's typically been a man's game, and I think maybe it's a little threatening to have women sort of join the club, and I'm sure that's probably not the most popular opinion, but I think probably behind closed doors a lot of women have that opinion, that it is something that's been typically a man's world, and to break through and enter it, you have to sort of be part of the Good Old Boy Network, even though it's more of an indie club. It's not sort of the prototype of the Good Old Boy Network. Is that something that you think is similar?
Oh, absolutely. And interestingly enough, it's a similar thing in television directing too. And there are certain networks that are supporting trying to get more diverse voices. I just actually got into this program with Disney ABC Television. It's a directing program where you get to shadow veteran directors on their TV shows. And I'm in it because I'm a woman. Like, women are considered a minority in television also. And so I think it's great that organizations like, Disney, ABC are trying to support these diverse voices, but I think it's hard because and in the film world, it's like who is trying to support those voices?
Right. Isn't with the DGA is what 4% of the membership is women? I'm not sure if that's the right breakdown, but yeah, it's very small.
Yeah. No, it was great. We watched an interview with Kathleen Turner and Emily Deschanel, talking about the filmmaking process, and they were asked, what was it like working with a female director? What was it like working with Anne? And they both had very, very favorable, strong comments. They kind of said, Anne kind of just came in. There was, the no nonsense. She kind of knew what she wanted and just kept that set moving day after day after day. So it was great hearing the actresses get behind you and support you in that manner.
Thank you. And I mean, I have to say, working with someone like Kathleen Turner, she's very into theatre. And so the theatre process, it's a lot of rehearsal, but then you get on stage and you do it. So she very much was into just wanting to get it done. There wasn't any wasting time in hair and makeup. There wasn't any, as soon as she was ready, she was sitting on that set, because she knew if she was on set, it would make the crew move faster as well. Mm-hmm. So, we had a really short shoot schedule. It was 19 days. So there wasn't any time for it to be any other way. And I was so grateful that because you don't know going in with someone how they're going to be on a day-to-day basis. And she was incredible.
Well, in keeping with that, now Kathleen's character is a devoutly religious woman, and she's committed to pleasing her church and keeping everything looking perfect, so to speak, from the outside, despite things being quite the contrary in her own life. Can you share some of the things that Eileen Cleary, that she's trying to keep from her friends and neighbors in the clergy?
Oh, absolutely. I think you said some of it at the beginning, right, when we're talking about the plot, but it's really, her family, and her husband is a recovered alcoholic, but he's, had quite the past, and her son has left his wife, and he's having an affair with the local manicurist, so she certainly doesn't want anyone to know about that. And her daughter is a lesbian and is about to get married to her life partner. And, although I think in the background Eileen's probably had some kind of awareness of something with her daughter, she's been in complete denial. So it's in the moment of the film where the daughter actually, has to tell her mum what's going on and isn't going to stand for this denial anymore.
I'm wondering, why do you think this is such a universal theme in so many people's lives? I mean, why are people so committed to keeping everything looking perfect? Because I think even if they don't have a similar family dynamic the way Eileen Cleary does, there's a lot of this. We all do it, try to keep up with the Joneses and make everything sort of look shiny and beautiful from the outside. Why do you think that is?
That's another good question. I mean, I think it's inherent in how we're brought up. We're brought up to look good, to be good, to sort of, to show our best to the world. And then there becomes this thing, if it's not the best, it shouldn't be shown. So I'm not entirely sure why that is in society, but it certainly is. And definitely a lot of people who've seen the film have responded in similar ways, saying this is so much like my family, or this is my, brother's family, or, whatever, whoever, it's someone in their periphery, if not their own family.
Okay.
Prior to this feature film, you have one short film that's listed on IMDb at least, and you didn't write this film. How did this story sort of come, end up on your desk? And then once it was pitched to you, or once it was presented to you, or once you had it, is this a story or a script that you had to fight for to be the director on?
Well, I actually had decided that I wanted to do a film, and I was looking for scripts. So I found this site online called Inktip. Have you heard of Inktip?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, Inktip is a site where, writers post their scripts, and you have to, it took a little bit for me to actually get on the site because, there's certain levels of producers and people that they want on the site, but I managed to get on the site, and then they supported me to put a call out to writers for what I was looking for. So I was kind of able to, give some and they were very general parameters because I was looking for a good story basically, but one that would make sense for me. And so I had a ton of scripts sent to me. Actually, synopsises were sent to me. So then I could read the synopsis, and then if it was a script that I wanted to read, I would just let the writer know, yeah, I would love to read your script. So that was a little bit of a process. And I read, I certainly read some interesting scripts. Some were stronger than others. But when I read this one, I just, the whole family dynamics and the essence of the story just really spoke to me, and I felt like it would be a very relatable story for people. The script, when I originally read it, it had been written like 10 years ago, so it was dated, so it needed a lot of work. But the essence of the family and and their relationships stayed the same.
So tell us more about that process. So you get the script and you're like, yes, I'm interested in directing this and getting behind this, producing it. What was the back and forth? And also, what was sort of the timeline on that? When was this happening?
This was, I think it was the end of 2007 when I started talking to the writer. It's probably right at the end of the year. And we probably went back and forth for 3 to 4 months. So, I sent her, she wanted to see my work. She really wanted to know that if she was going to option it to someone, even though this was her first script that would be optioned, she had a few written that she was shopping around. She wanted to know that it was going to get made. So I sent her my short, and we had quite a few phone conversations about it, and my vision for the script and how I was planning to get it made. And I think after that time, she just decided to go for it, which was great. And the original writer, her name's Claire Riley, and she just basically said to me, "It's your baby now. You can do what you want with it." So she gave me full permission to bring on another writer, because we had these discussions about the script being dated, and how I felt like it or where I felt like it needed work. And I wanted to bring on a writer who was in LA, so I could sit down one-on-one with them and really work on it like that. So so then when she did that with the script and said, "Do what you want with it," I mean, that was a huge thing, is it gave us permission to really do whatever.
And how long did you work on it with the new screenwriter? How long did that develop? 3 to 4 months arranging it, and now how much longer in terms of development?
It's a long process. We worked on it probably for a year before I brought our producers on board, and then we still were rewriting after that, and it was almost another year before we cast. So it was 18 months to 2 years of working with this script to get it where it needed to be. And of course it's not full time because everyone's doing different things, but it was a lot of work. We probably did so I optioned it probably at the beginning, like a March, and I think in the November we did our first reading of the script, which of course only went to show furthermore what wasn't working. I mean, it showed what was working too, but then it's even more work after that, because you're like, okay, here's where it's not working. But so it's quite a long process, but everyone who's making films gets that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, now you were working another job too at the time this was all going on. How are you balancing all that?
Well, I was teaching, and fortunately the teaching part was part-time. So I was teaching at the healing school I studied at. I ended up teaching there for quite a few years.
Oh, nice.
And so that was perfect. And then, I have had a small practice, so I was doing that as well. So I wasn't working like 9 to 5 every day, another job, and doing this. I was sort of balancing. I was working as much as I needed to be able to take care of life, and then the rest of the time I could focus on the film.
I see. Well, I want to go back to the theme of the film, in that sort of trying to keep everything looking perfect. And there's so much fascination, bordering on sort of a love-hate relationship that America has with reality stars and also mainstream stars, and we seem so invested in their personal lives, despite the fact that it may be all manufactured. I'm wondering, why do you think we're so fascinated by this? What is the reason that just want to get your take on that we're so invested? Sometimes I'll just read the YouTube comments or the comments on Yahoo and won't even read the article. But people are so invested in people that they don't even know. What do you think the reason is?
Well, that's I don't really. I mean, it's out of my area of expertise to answer that. That's for sure. But what do I think? I have to say, I think most things that are put out there are very fabricated. Mm-hmm. So, again, it's this putting up appearances thing, which is going along with this theme that we're discussing. But I think sometimes it's easier to look outside of yourself and focus on someone else and what they're doing in the world, rather than being inside and really, having your own, being in touch with your own feelings and emotions and looking at where you're going with your own life. I mean, that's work. Looking outside at someone else and either judging or just being entertained by it, that's just, that's easy.
Right.
Yeah, it's well said.
Yeah.
It's well stated.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We thought you'd have a great answer for it, so we wanted to ask you. So from being on the set and going through the whole process with the film, what was your takeaway? Whether it be just about family dynamics, whether it be about the discipline to follow through on things. Did you have any epiphanies that you walked away from after completing the film?
Well, I think going into the film, are you talking about the filmmaking process or the story process?
Really the entire thing. Anything that was a takeaway. It could have been one component of it.
I think the biggest thing for me, because it felt so different in a feature than a short. I mean, and the short that I did was short, like it was 7 minutes, so it was so compressed. it's just the amount of work, and I mean, you know this because you're about to, you finished your film, like the amount of work that goes from the script phase to you actually, I mean, not even lock picture till you lock the whole thing. It's just astronomical. I mean, I think going into this, because this was sort of the experience on my short, I kind of felt like, oh, once I got the film in the can, all the hard work was done, and then it was just editing and, but no. I mean, that process, it was, on this length of a film, on a feature, it's just so, for me at least, so full on, and so much work and so many decisions that really, we did some test screenings for audiences, and these minute decisions really affected, how the film was perceived. And so it's like having to be that, like, present for every second, every frame, basically, of your movie to make sure it's really what you want to say, or it's the best of what you have that, that you can say. It was, that was eye-opening. And I think, too, going into my next project, I will have that every moment of everything we shoot. Like, there's just, I don't know, maybe a heightened level of awareness of what each moment that you capture, the impact of it.
So I'm wondering what you can recommend for people that maybe they've been through a long, drawn-out process with their film, and maybe there's some inertia involved. Maybe they get, I don't know if I really want to face the computer today. I don't want to deal with this today. There's frustration. Because I'm sure that's a part of everybody's project. Things get stuck, or how do we sort of free ourselves from that inertia? Do we take a break from it, or do we work through it?
Well, I'm actually both. I mean, I'm a big proponent of where's your energy? Where's this inertia coming from? Is it coming from, that you have been stuck at the computer and not moved and haven't been out and haven't gotten air into your system and haven't, I see going out and exercising as kind of discharging your energy so it doesn't get stuck, because that inertia is that stuckness. So, and also taking really good care of yourself. I mean, sleeping, eating well, I mean, it all goes into this process. And I also feel like if this inertia is not, if you're doing all that and you're still feeling the inertia, I think it's really important to go back to what drove your passion in the first place to start. To try and remember, oh, okay, this is what really made me passionate about this material or this story that I'm trying to tell, or this is why I want to make my first film or second film, whatever it is. This is why I wanted to do it in the first place. To really tap into that passion can be really helpful too.
That's great. Well, I want to go back to Eileen's character, in that I understand that she clung to sort of outdated ideas about the past. And I think all of us do. I mean, the world has changed so much in the last 4 to 5 years. And we all sort of romanticize the past. Even for filmmakers, the 90s were seen as this wonderful time, Why did Eileen cling to this sort of outdated mode of what her life really was?
Well, she, something is revealed in the film where she's had an experience that was, somewhat traumatic for her. And so this sort of clinging to the past and clinging to her beliefs was really about, again, having something to hold on to not have to really feel and express those feelings. So for her, that was keeping her safe.
Oh, interesting.
And I kind of see that that sort of clinging to something that makes you feel safe almost, it could be seen as being similar to someone that has an addiction, that's clinging to, the alcohol that they know, or the drug that they know, or the, sugar, whatever. Yeah. But it's like, it's a similar kind of reasoning or backstory.
Like a coping mechanism.
Yeah, right. Coping mechanism, absolutely, it's a better word.
Right. Well, you also mentioned, too, that one of the biggest challenges was the fact that you had limited time to rehearse and shoot the film, with 19 days shooting time. And we've heard about masters like, Roger Corman being just so efficient on set and just being very swift but productive. How did you keep in line with that theme of being just very, I'm sure it's not easy to do, but how did you keep things on point?
Yeah, and I mean a lot of it happened, I think, in the script phase where we basically cut anything that was extraneous. So everything we were shooting, we knew we had to have and we needed. But I mean, it was tough. There were days where we were going over it. I mean, we had to shoot a couple of scenes in a one-er because that was all that we could do. So I hope that I was swift. I think that I learned a lot of maybe how to do it better next time. But I mean, it was really the constraints of how each day was set up. I mean, we had our scene, we had our time frame of when we had to have that shot and we had to stick to it. So then it becomes a choice. Do we have it? Do we have enough? There's no time to improv. It's like move on. And sometimes that was hard to have to make those decisions because I'd love to do it one more time, Maybe we'll get something better. Maybe we'll get something different. But it just did you get what you needed? And then you got to move on.
And often in sort of this low budget realm, one of the first things we say about our films is our film has no stars, no recognizable talent. And in your case, you've attracted amazing talent to your project so far. I mean, your short film stars Jane Lynch and Margaret Child, both have roles in that film. And then obviously with The Perfect Family, Kathleen Turner, Emily Deschanel, Jason Ritter, Richard Chamberlain, and on and on and on. What is your process for getting these bigger names attached to your projects?
Well, I think, for me, at least with the feature, it didn't make sense to do it unless we had someone of Kathleen's caliber playing the lead. So I was very clear, either we did it at that budget level, which was small, or we had to go micro budget with no names, which I didn't see how we could on this story. It would have been, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a way to do it, but I don't think it wouldn't be my preferred way to try and do it. So we really, we had a casting director on board. I have to say, I think the first step really to the whole process, and for anyone doing their first feature, is finding producers who are more experienced than you. Finding producers who can elevate this, how appealing it would be to be on board a project. Because as a first-time director, I mean, I'm not gonna attract anyone. I mean, perhaps after we sat down, I think if someone's interested, I could keep them interested, but they're not going to look at my name and I have nothing to show. So I brought on producers who, the Cora Olsen and Jennifer Dubin from Present Pictures, who are incredibly talented women. They had done 2 features before. One had premiered at Sundance and one at Toronto. So, which was something that I was looking for in producers. I was looking for people who had films at that level because, I know it's about people knowing people. It's just how it works in any industry. So that was important to me. But also the fact that they, having their names also would make an actor feel like, oh, this film's going to get made, and it's going to get made at a caliber that makes sense to me. So for me, bringing on those, our producers was the first step to making any of it happen.
Well, let's stay right with that thought. And, how did you get the producers on board? What did you do to attract them and sort of get them on board with what you're doing?
Well, I actually was at this lecture at Film Independent, and it was a producing lecture because I was trying to, at the time, learn as much as I could about producing, even though I didn't want to produce, but I felt like the more I know, the better. And there was someone sitting next to me at this lecture who was asking really, really intelligent questions, like really smart. I was like, who is this woman sitting next to me asking this question? So I ended up talking to her, and she was someone who was a post-production supervisor, but wanting to get into producing. So she knew everything, but she just was, there trying to learn a bit more about the producing side as opposed to the post side, which she was all over. And anyway, so we got to talking, and I talked to her about my project and said, do you know good independent producers? And she says, yeah. And she gave me a few names. And so I did some research, and I wasn't quite ready at that point. The script wasn't ready. And so, but I kept her information. And then when the script was ready, I contacted her and said, hey, you remember those producers you mentioned? Would you be willing to put me in touch with them? And it turned out, it was so funny that she'd actually left the company, the post-production company she was in, and had started renting space in the same, office building as these producers were in. So she was seeing them on a day-to-day basis. Oh, wow. So it was just synchronicity, perhaps, but also to actually get the script to them. I think that was very synchronistic. And then they responded to the script, and we, got on the phone. I think I was in Australia at the time, so we had this big phone conversation when I was there about how they like to work, how I like to work, what we were both looking for, and we just hit it off. I mean, it was amazing.
So let's keep with that. Let's just take the instance of Kathleen Turner. We read. I think it was IndieWire. Mentioned that this is really her first sort of starring role in a film in more than 2 decades. So here you are. You have your producing team behind you, experienced. How did you begin to approach Kathleen and get her interested in doing this film?
Well, the next step pretty early on was, our producers brought on a casting director. Her name's Ronnie Yaskell, and she has cast some big movies, and she cast independent film as well. And my producers had worked with her before. So then I had to meet with her, and we got on. So she said yes. And Ronnie had a relationship with Kathleen's agent. So we were able to get the script to her, when we felt like it was ready, and find out that she was interested. And then the next step was she was interested, but she needed to talk to me. So Kathleen and I got on the phone because Kathleen's in New York, and she basically told me that she really liked the script, but there were things in it that were still missing for her. She felt like there were certain aspects of her character that weren't developed enough and weren't on the page enough. And fortunately, what she was saying was totally aligned with our intention for the script. It just took a new pair of eyes to kind of see where it wasn't landing on the page. And, she gave some beautiful notes, and they really helped us deepen her character as well as the supporting roles too. But, in that phone conversation, I made sure that it was very clear to her that we were going to go into a rewrite based specifically for her based on her notes. So she was thrilled about that. So it was kind of like really listening to her and listening to what she needed, and also in the process making sure it's still aligned with, if she'd given me notes that were so far off what the intention for the script was, it would never have worked. But it wasn't that, it was the opposite. So it made sense for us to really try and get it right for her.
Oh, man, this is really such wonderful information. Thank you, Anne, for just giving us some of this backstory. We just want to keep pushing this thing forward. Once you had the film complete, or maybe even before you had the film complete. At what point? Do you have a sales agent involved in the film? The producer's rep, or there's someone of that caliber? Helping to sell the film? Did you bring someone like that on board?
Yeah, we did have a sales agent, or we do have a sales agent, actually. He's still working with us, but we kind of knew it was, with the script and the story, and that it was kind of 50-50 as to whether we would actually sell it to a distributor that we felt like would be able to do what we wanted to happen with the film. So we kind of had in our back, our idea, okay, if that happens, that would be amazing and that'll be great, but it's incredibly difficult. And if it doesn't, we wanted to be able to sort of bring on our own team to distribute the film. So, so we waited to see whether we could get picked up, and that didn't happen. So we decided to go for it and do it ourselves, put a team together, just kind of like what a an indie distributor would do, but obviously it's on a much smaller scale.
And did that happen before or after the premiere at Tribeca?
It was after, because we had people that were watching it and interested, but it just for whatever reason the timing wasn't right, or it just it didn't happen. But it was after the premiere in Tribeca, so it's probably a couple of months after Tribeca where we're like, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to wait? Because some people want to wait and see how the year's looking before they commit, to maybe a film that it might be they're unsure about. But we didn't want to wait, so we decided to go for it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, how do you feel about The Perfect Family being released in theaters and then also on VOD at the same time?
Well, I think for this film, it made total sense to do it that way because, you know, we were so limited on our budget for getting the word out there, but yet Kathleen was able to do a ton of national press for us. So we were able to get the word out through all the press she was doing, but we could never reach all the cities that people would see her on television in. So we felt like if we did this VOD, it would mean that those people would be able to access the film right away. And Kathleen, like, totally got it, what we were doing. And so on everything she went on, she said, and we're on demand. You know, so anyone who gets on demand is going to, you know, has access to the film as soon as they hear her say that, as long as someone, I mean, I think on demand is still something that a portion of the population is understanding and how to access it and how to figure out what's on there, but some people are all over it. So, and then we're also on iTunes as well, so there's another whole group of people that you know, like to consume films that way. So I think, you know, for this budget level it made sense, but what did happen in the process from when we first decided to do this, you know, theaters and on demand at the same time, you know, some of the Hollywood films started doing it, and then the theaters started clamping down on who they were going to allow to do this day and date. So when we started, there was a lot more theaters that we potentially thought we could get into because they hadn't said no. But in the 6 months of while we were sort of planning it and starting to reach out to theaters, it all changed. The whole landscape changed. And so we were incredibly lucky that AMC Independent was willing to work with us in certain areas so that we could, you know, get into those theaters. I think it's more the bigger cities, you know, because it's the indie theaters in smaller cities, I think the on-demand doesn't bother them, but some of the bigger theaters, it certainly does. And so I think that can be a limiting piece too. But yeah, but I think for this film, it was definitely the right thing. I mean, we don't find out for, I think, another month what happened on demand. So we're sort of the jury's still out on that.
Gotcha.
But, you know, I think it certainly has an effect on your theatrical numbers because, especially with a smaller film, I think people are, for a lot of the time, going to want to be like, oh, yeah, I'll just stay home and watch it. I won't go out to the theatre. So, you know, I think it does affect those numbers. But, you know, I mean, we were playing in theatres with these big movies. And so, you know, just to actually be on a screen I was thrilled.
I mean, how many times have you seen it on the big screen so far?
Well, I've probably seen it. I don't even know. I mean, I went to in Tribeca. I went to a few of the first screenings just to see how the audience was, and then a lot of the time I won't stay. I'll just go in at the end or something. So I've probably been to like 5 or 6 with audiences, and then I just kind of hang out. But the film just played in Korea it was in Seoul at the Korean International Women's Film Festival. So I sat in on that screening because it was the first time we'd played to a non-English speaking audience. So it was good.
What was the reaction in Seoul?
Well, you know, I did a Q&A after both the screenings. We did 2 screenings that I was there for, and they responded. They loved the film. They asked really thoughtful questions. You know, like really like specific. Like, why did he say this in this line in this thing? Never a question I'd never heard before, and I'm thinking, why did he say that? Let me, you know, I didn't. So it was good, but of course the comedy played very differently.
Sure.
I mean, it wasn't like to an English-speaking audience. The comedy didn't play the same, but I felt like as a whole, the essence of the film did. The dramatic part certainly did. So it was a really good experience. And there was a girl in the audience. She was from Canada, living in Canada, but was Korean and was there. And she said to me, "Oh, the subtitles were pretty accurate." I was like, "Okay, great," because I had no idea, obviously.
Interesting.
You know, and something you have cool, you know, happening here is Kathleen Turner and Jason Ritter and Emily Deschanel on your Facebook page for The Perfect Family. they've been doing video responses to some of the fans' questions, which is really neat to see. I mean, is that something? Are you involved with that directly, or do you have other people that handle that? I mean, are you like sort of the one that's taping these, or how's that all happening?
Yeah, no, I was involved with the taping. Someone else is popping them up for us. But yeah, we filmed, I just went and filmed Emily one afternoon, and Jason did it on our press day. And when Kathleen and I did the director's commentary in New York, and she also did a lot of call outs for the VOD, which was great. We filmed her Facebook stuff then. So, we sort of caught them when we could to do it.
Are you handling all the social media for the film, or do you have sort of a PMD or someone that is?
We worked with a publicity company, Brigade. They're out of New York, and they handled both the traditional publicity, so all Kathleen's PR, and then also our online stuff. I mean, we did the filming and things, but we sort of talked to them about what we wanted to do, and they helped, get the questions together and things like that. So it's kind of a combo. It was really, working with a team. Okay. As opposed to having someone else do it for you. And we're also not doing it all ourselves. So it's sort of collaborating.
Yeah, that's nice. Well, now, the film's premiered at one of the top festivals, and it's been given a theatrical and is currently available everywhere. Have you reached all of your goals for the film, or are there other sort of levels that you want to top or avenues you want to take?
Well, I think we've reached a lot of goals. We're still working on our foreign, and we've had so many people reaching out to us on Facebook and, and me on Twitter as well, asking about foreign, and we're still trying to figure out that, because we did have a sales company that we were going to go with for foreign, but there were just some things we couldn't agree on in the contract that felt like it was going to make sense for us and not put us in potential financial, problems down the track if it didn't, go down the way it was said it would go down. So we didn't sign with a foreign sales agent, and we're sort of piecing together our foreign and figuring it out as we go. And, when I say we, it's probably my producers and I, and my producers are very, very savvy and very, very quick. So they're, we're figuring out this landscape as quick as we can. But I really hope that it's quick enough to get it out into the places that it makes sense, for, financially, as well as, people being able to see it.
Yeah. What did you learn from working with Kathleen Turner? I mean, aside from being such an amazing actor, she's a force of nature. When you would see her in the Q&As, I mean, she had the room, What was it that, I mean, were there any takeaways where you kind of went, aha, just something, any type of lesson that you learned from watching her?
I think the biggest thing is don't hold back. Because she would just get into an interview. I mean, I learned so much, particularly in the interview stage after. I mean, I learned a lot on set, but I expected to learn a lot. But, I didn't really have it in my periphery what it was going to happen with the press. But she just gets in there, and she's so engaged, and she's so expressive, and she doesn't hold back like her thoughts, or and I love that. I respect that in someone, if they can just, and I mean, she's kind, like she's never going to, she doesn't, right, her intention is never in her whatever she's saying to harm or anything. But I mean, it's a good lesson, because I think it's easy to when you're on camera, especially for me, to kind of be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say that, or I guess it's that keeping up appearances thing, which I don't think I do with people I know or anything like that. But then when you're going out on a larger scale and the whole, who knows who's going to see it, I think can be, more of a tendency to be like, oh, let me say this right, or let me express this right. So again, I think maybe part of the human condition, but something that I certainly want to work on, just being able to really speak.
So she lets go without being, harmful, like you said, but she's able to just kind of let go and just be who she is with no filter.
Absolutely.
That's great.
You know, what an absolute delight, and
yeah,
you know,
thank you,
having this opportunity to sit down and speak with you.
This is really nice. Thank you.
You provided us just tremendous insight, you know, and I believe you give hope and inspiration to all female directors,
Yes.
male directors out there. Wow, I think we all would like to sort of model ourselves off of some of the things that you've shared here. It's really been great.
Yeah.
Very kind, thank you. I want to thank you both for your show. I didn't get to say, but like when I was in the prep phase for the film and very early as I'm working on this script, I'm like walking on the beach and I have my headphones on and I'm listening to you doing your interviews. I'm like, okay, you know, whenever someone's saying something positive like what you're saying, it's like, okay, yeah, I can do it. So your show is very inspirational, and I think really such an important thing for filmmakers to be able to have access to listen to other people's experiences and journeys with their project. And I know how much work, you know, the show has been, as well as you doing your other life stuff and your film. I mean, it's incredible the amount of time you've given. So thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah,
great.
we love
Thank
it.
you.
We've been speaking with filmmaker Anne Renton. You know, and you can find out more about her. Actually, you can connect with her directly on Twitter at Certainty Films. Certainty Films.
Right.
And you can also connect and find out more about The Perfect Family, theperfectfamilymovie.com, as well as on Facebook at The Perfect Family. And how long will we continue to see the film in theaters, and how long will we continue to see it on VOD?
Well, our theatrical run, we did a short theatrical run. We're still in some theaters. We're in a theater in Florida that's doing really, really well. And there's a couple of cities that we're in, and so probably another few weeks in certain locations. But we're on demand, so anyone who has cable can go on demand and get it, or on iTunes. We're on iTunes as well. So, and then we have the DVD that comes out June 26th.
Oh, very nice.
Congratulations, Anne.
Wow.
Congratulations.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
You got it.